Halfway through the strategy, I lost my memory. It was the third year of my mission to win over the crown prince of the capital, and I lost my memory. My mind was still stuck at the moment when I was giving my ex-boyfriend the cold shoulder. Right in front of him, I dialed my ex's number. "Baby, don't be mad. I'll wear a new dress just for you, okay?" The next second, the all-powerful President Thomas crushed the glass in his hand with his bare fist. He gritted his teeth and asked, "Nancy, say that again if you dare. Do you think I'm dead or something? Nancy, how long are you going to keep this up? I told you, she means nothing to me. We grew up together. It's been so long since we saw each other, what's wrong with a little kiss?" When I woke up, I was in a hospital. A sharply dressed stranger sat by the bed, raking his fingers through his hair in frustration. Seeing that I stayed silent, he took off his watch and tossed it casually in front of me. "I'll give you this. And a condo too. Is that enough?" I shook my head and picked up the diamond-studded watch, trying to focus my blurry vision. The man chuckled softly and sat beside me, patting my head like I was a pet. "There you go. Running into the street like that, what were you thinking? Pack up. I'll take you home." To be honest, he had striking features, sharp brows, defined eyes, outrageously handsome. But what a temper. Definitely not my type. I pulled away from him and handed the watch back. "My boyfriend gets off work at 5:30. No need to trouble yourself." I thought I'd been polite enough. But his face darkened instantly. He narrowed his eyes, voice laced with danger. "Nancy, say that again. Which boyfriend of yours gets off work at 5:30? I'd been with Adam for 3 years. Who else would I be talking about?" Before I could even get the words out, the man shoved his phone into my hand. "Call him. Right now. I want to see which man dares to come pick you up." I gave him a helpless look. As if getting a concussion in a car crash wasn't unlucky enough, now I had to deal with a lunatic. Said lunatic was sprawled across the sofa, legs wide, eyes locked on me as I scrolled through my contacts and pulled Adam out of the blacklist. Adam and I rarely fought, but he could be a bit uptight sometimes. Like last time, I bought a skirt that was a little too short and he wouldn't shut up about it for days. The call rang twice in the quiet hospital room before he finally picked up. His voice was soft, tentative. "Nancy? Is that you?" I hummed in response. On the other end, it sounded like he drew strength from that single sound and launched into a flurry of questions. "I heard you were in a car accident, was it serious? Which hospital are you in? I'm coming right now." With every question he asked, the man in front of me grew visibly darker in the face. I quickly gave Adam the hospital's name and couldn't resist softening my voice a little. "Baby, I'll wear my new dress for you tomorrow, okay?" As soon as the words left my lips, there was a loud crash. I turned around just in time to see the man crush a second cup in his bare hand. Blood and glass shards scattered at his feet. He didn't even seem to feel the pain, just gritted his teeth and spat. "Nancy, say that again if you dare. Do you think I'm dead?" A nurse burst into the room, startled by the sound. "President Thomas, please calm down. The patient needs rest." His hand looked awful, and it took a while for the nurse to wrap the wound. Halfway through, his phone rang. He took a deep breath, brow twitching with suppressed rage. His tone was far from pleasant. "I told you, I can't leave right now." A carefree voice crackled through the speaker. "Tara's still waiting for you." "What's so urgent?" Thomas stared at me intently and said slowly, catching a cheater. "You tell me, is that urgent enough?" The nurse's ears twitched like antennas, curious but afraid to listen. I was so unnerved by his stare that I found myself gazing up at the ceiling. You know, for a hospital ceiling, it was surprisingly ceiling-like. "Don't let the wound touch water for now. Come back in 3 days to change the dressing." Clearly, the man wasn't paying attention. He waved the nurse away with a flick of his hand. Before she could even close the door, someone burst into the room. His coat wasn't even on properly, the black trench flapping around his waist. Adam was 5 years older than me, calm and composed. When we lived together, he'd always prep everything. My toothbrush had paste, towels were folded and placed just right. I'd never seen him so disheveled. I tilted my head, grabbed his belt, and nuzzled against his waist. "Take me home. I've already been discharged." Adam froze for a second. His Adam's apple bobbed as he raised a cool palm toward my forehead. "Nancy, Before he could finish, clapping rang out from across the room. The man sat in shadow, one eyebrow lowered. "How touching," he said. "Nancy chased after me like a stray dog for 3 years, and now this Adam is her boyfriend." I had no idea what he was talking about. Before I could stand up, Adam broke free from my grip and punched him straight in the face. "Thomas, watch your damn mouth." Even I was stunned. Adam had never raised his voice at anyone, let alone hit them. I quickly wrapped my arms around him and dragged him out before Thomas could retaliate. Thomas lost it. He kicked the shiny metal door in a fit of rage. Nancy, so you're taking his side? Shit. Nancy, get your ass back here. I slammed the door behind us, leaving his yelling far behind. Sitting in the passenger seat, I rubbed Adam's hand. Does it hurt? Why'd you get so worked up? What if you broke your hand? In the warm glow of the car, Adam said nothing. Instead, the moment I looked up, he kissed me hard. Unlike usual, today's kiss was a little frantic. A little desperate. Like he was hurt. My face flushed as he deepened the kiss. Adam wasn't doing any better. He cupped the back of my neck and adjusted our posture to make it more comfortable. Rest a bit, he whispered. We're almost home. After everything that had just happened, I was completely drained. I didn't even have the energy to question Adam's uncharacteristically bold behavior. All the way home, my head felt like a bowl of wobbly tofu. Just as we were about to arrive, a flurry of chipper, cartoonish voices exploded in my mind. Master. Master. You're finally awake. The strategy progress for Thomas has reached 60%. Victory is just ahead. Wait, what? Me? Targeting Thomas? That so-called strategy system was chattering away inside my head like fireworks. My face was full of confusion, but I didn't even get a chance to speak. Just as I was about to knock my head against the wall to wake myself up, a warm, damp palm pressed against my forehead. And there it was, 8 perfectly defined abs. Adam, who was usually all buttoned up and reserved, was now standing before me with nothing but a towel slung low around his waist. Beads of water trickled down his torso, disappearing into the grooves of his muscles. Headache? Let me massage it for you. I looked up, my gaze sliding from his Adam's apple downward. System? Strategy? I forgot all about them. My knees gave out, and I collapsed into his arms. I'd fallen for Adam at first sight. When we went public with our relationship, everyone thought I was out of my mind. Maria even took the lead in the comment section. Nancy, seriously? With your wild energy, how could someone like Professor Adam ever satisfy you? Well, as it turns out, not only could Professor Adam satisfy, he excelled. His only flaw was being too self-disciplined. Every time, I had to take the initiative. Adam turned slightly, revealing the pale line of his neck. A droplet trembled at his throat, ready to fall. The atmosphere was charged. At this point, not making a move would be inhuman. Just as I reached for the switch, an abrupt ringtone shattered the moment. It was Thomas. Why on earth did I have his number? Could everything the system said actually be true? Pushing away that ridiculous thought, I hung up. But Thomas was like a cursed ghost, calling again and again. Adam's gaze lingered briefly on the screen. He pressed his lips together and walked out of the room without saying a word. I stared after him, exasperated. The meat was practically at my lips and now it was flying away. I gritted my teeth and answered the call. Thomas, unless your house is on fire, this better be important. On the other end, someone let out a snort and spoke to someone else off mic. President Thomas, looks like your little dare is going to fail after all. The voice sounded like that same person who'd called from the hospital. The phone changed hands, and suddenly I could hear both Thomas and the system speaking in unison. Top spar. Come get me. Master, you're Thomas's top contact. Whenever he drinks too much, you're always the first he calls. His affection level went from negative to 0 because you came to pick him up in that blizzard on the Dragon Boat Festival, remember? The system babbled on, dutifully jogging my memory. A flash of imagery surfaced in my mind. It was raining heavily. I stood behind Adam, who was holding a black umbrella in front of the car. The golden headlights made his solitary figure look even more lonely, almost fragile. If I wasn't mistaken, Adam's birthday was on the Dragon Boat Festival. Could it really be true? Did I break up with Adam 3 years ago just to complete some ridiculous strategy? The voice in my head was still urging me, acting like picking up Thomas in the middle of the night was my sacred duty. My temper flared. Whoever wants to pick you up, let them. I'm done being your babysitter. Before he could even reply, I slapped the call button and stormed out. The system shrieked in my ear, its screech sharp and metallic. I clapped my hands over my ears and dove into Adam's arms like a frightened kitten. In the dim light, his body radiated warmth. His eyes blinked, red and damp. If you're leaving, I'll take you. That did it. Some fire, ignited in the pit of my stomach. I burrowed deeper into Adam's arms, my voice barely a whisper. You're right here. Where else would I go? Master, your priority right now should be going to pick up Thomas, not drooling over chest, abs, and biceps, hee. I ignored the system completely, brushing my fingertip gently along the corner of Adam's eye. In the 3 years we'd been together, he always kept his composure. Only when I pushed him too far would he let out a low, reluctant groan. His voice was husky, probing. You're really not going? I tossed the phone onto the carpet and kissed his throat with abandon. I'm not going. I'll never go again. The system was silenced for the entire night. By morning, my back ached, my waist was sore, and Adam was gone. At my bedside, a mug of warm milk and breakfast sat next to a neatly written note, "Remember to eat. There's pain medicine in the drawer. Sorry." I was still smiling when the system's shrill voice returned to my ears. "Ugh, seriously? You locked me in solitary for a whole night." "A whole night." I covered one ear and made my way downstairs. With Adam out, it was finally time to get to the bottom of this system business. "Oh, so we're still in teen mode." "Right, you said yesterday. Who exactly was I supposed to be targeting?" "Thomas." The system, delighted by my attention, suddenly became smug. "Humph. Took you long enough to ask. Did you know? Thomas waited for you at the bar until 4 in the morning. His affection dropped to— Wait, what the hell? It went up to 68%. I picked up the phone from the carpet, 8 missed calls from Thomas and over 10 messages. The system peeked over and squealed with excitement. "This is the first time he's ever messaged you first. Ah, once you pass the barely tolerable line, everything changes." I swiped through the conversation history. For 3 whole years, I was the one checking in, coddling, running errands. If Thomas got annoyed, he wouldn't even reply, just call me directly. Our calls never lasted more than 30 seconds. I didn't even need to hear his tone to know how unpleasant he must have sounded. The more I read, the angrier I got. The system fanned the flames gleefully beside me. "Master, you used to be so diligent. Chauffeuring him around, picking him up after late-night drinking sprees, no matter how late it was, the first person he saw outside was always you. How about now? Remember anything yet? We need to hustle." I scrolled all the way to the top and stared at the screen, stunned and confused. Even for Adam, my patience had never lasted beyond 3 months. I lifted the phone and asked flatly, "So tell me, what exactly is the reward for completing this whole strategy?" The system faltered. "Ugh, a dozen elite male models. Figures." It had to be something I drunkenly joked about with the system during my Cold War with Adam. I let out a cold laugh. "What about the punishment?" "There isn't one. If the mission fails, I'll just stick with you, for the rest of your life." My mouth twitched. The last time I'd seen something so clingy, it was spring, and the air was full of damn willow fluff. Feeling a tightness in my chest, I rolled over and sent Adam a message, practically flinging my phone onto the bed. "Baby, what time do you get off work? I'll come pick you up." Adam had a full day of lectures, so I wasn't expecting an instant reply. After washing up, I came back to find a string of new messages, from Thomas. "Nancy, I can let yesterday slide. 5:10 p.m. at the Materials Tower entrance. If you're not there, you're dead." I stared at the screen for a solid 10 seconds. Holy crap. Wrong person. Panicked, I immediately blocked Thomas, then resent the message, this time, to the right person, Adam. His reply came in seconds. "Sorry, I have to work late tonight. There's food I made this morning in the fridge, or I can order you delivery." Adam's work tended to pile up in waves. I was already used to it, so I casually replied, "No need, I'll be good and eat by myself. Come home safe, okay?" As soon as I blocked Thomas, the system went berserk. "Ah, you can't block the strategy target. I'm going to go dark, literally." I ignored it entirely and called Maria. Judging by the chaos in the background, she was clearly at a bar. I grabbed my keys and drove there myself. When I pushed open the door, Maria was nestled between 3 male models, all taking turns pouring drinks into her mouth. "Babe, you finally remembered I exist," she grinned. "You have no idea how much I missed you." The 3 men straightened up obediently, voices tinged with flirtation. "Evening, big sis." One of them leaned in toward me, but I dodged with a swift pivot. My back was still sore, I didn't have the energy for this nonsense. Maria chuckled. "What? Not busy chasing Thomas tonight?" The system had already rage quit in the background. I sipped my drink and asked cautiously, was I really that obsessed with him before? At that, Maria shoved the man in front of her aside. "Obsessed doesn't even begin to cover it, Nancy. You chauffeured him around, came running whenever he called, even went up a mountain to pray for a safety talisman just for him. Honestly, the only other time I saw you care that much was when you were chasing Professor Adam." She trailed off, inching toward me with her wine glass. "You and Professor Adam. We're back together." "I knew it. When you ghosted him out of nowhere, he actually called me. He sounded like he was holding back tears. It broke my heart just hearing him." Maria was just getting into the story when the door creaked open. It was Tara. I recognized her from Thomas's phone wallpaper that night in the hospital. "Sorry, wrong room." "Oh wow, Nancy, you're here too." Maria rolled her eyes without the slightest pretense. "With signage that big outside, you still got lost? Miss by, maybe schedule an eye exam when you get a chance." Tara wore a pale yellow dress, soft and sweet, completely out of place here. Her brows furrowed, and big fat tears immediately welled up in her eyes. Nancy, I just got back from overseas. I don't know what I did to upset you. I didn't mean to. Even I was stunned. Who was she performing for? I didn't have time to figure it out, because 1 second later, the answer barged in. Thomas entered with his hand still wrapped in gauze. His gaze swept the private booth with lightning speed, and his expression grew darker by the second. You ignore my calls and block me, just to come here and flirt with male models. Didn't think you had it in you. So this is what you like, huh? Honestly, he was so damn noisy. I still couldn't figure out how I tolerated 3 years of this. I opened my mouth to respond, but Tara tugged on his arm. She was crying again, her tears trembling on her lashes. Thomas, I'm fine. Let's just go. Thomas froze for a second. I suspected that if Tara hadn't spoken, he might not have even noticed me sitting there. The system jumped in with some unnecessary commentary. Master, she and Thomas were childhood sweethearts. They had a thing before she moved abroad. But in the past 3 years you've been pursuing him, he only flew over once a year, for her birthday. She's not worth stressing about. Before the system even finished, Maria had already rolled up her sleeves. Hold it right there, miss, I'm so gracious. You really think we bullied you or something? Who was it that knew her birthday was the same day as Nancy's, and still dragged her overseas after they'd made plans? And now you want to play the victim? The 3 male models weren't looking to cause trouble, so they each held Maria down with their hands. Thomas frowned. Nancy, she didn't know. Just apologize and let's not bring this up again. For a brief second, I wondered if Thomas had taken a harder hit in the accident than I thought. I picked up my glass and walked toward him, step by step. The system lowered its voice, nearly begging. Boss, please. We barely cleared the passing line. Can't we just let this go? Sure, I thought. Why not? Then I turned, and splashed the entire glass of wine across Thomas's face. Crimson liquid dripped from his chin as I patted his cheek slowly. Thomas, you enjoyed my wholehearted devotion while keeping your ex-girlfriend on the line. Shouldn't I spit in your face instead? Thomas closed his eyes, his soaked shirt rising and falling with his breath. Nancy, Right. Let's never mention this again. I wiped my fingers on his shirt, signed the check, and turned to Maria, who looked completely dumbfounded. Have fun. Tonight's drinks are on me. I'm off, my boyfriend's getting off work. I have to go pick him up. With that, I walked past Tara at the door without looking back. The system didn't say a single word the entire time. It wasn't until the car had driven 2 blocks away that it finally whispered, well damn. 72%. So he's into that kind of thing, huh? I didn't respond. I was too busy staring at the message Adam had sent me an hour ago. House is empty. The food in the fridge is untouched. No takeout containers either. Did you leave? Sorry, I just wanted to ask. Didn't mean to interrupt. You too, carry on. I slammed my foot on the gas. By the time I got home, not a single light was on in the apartment. Adam was still in his coat, silhouetted against the floor-to-ceiling windows. He was right there, yet I found myself hesitating to approach. Until the wind blew the door shut behind me, and the figure by the window trembled. Then a shadow pounced on me. The kiss was more desperate, more feral than the one in the car. You smell like alcohol. Where were you? I hooked my arm around his neck, guiding him down onto the sofa. It was my friend drinking, not me. I didn't have a drop. Adam wasn't usually this forward. I gripped his tie, just about to push things further. When my stomach let out an untimely growl, Adam turned away, tugging his tie a little tighter. I'll go heat up the food. Watching his busy back in the kitchen, I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't quite the same as he was 3 years ago. But I couldn't put my finger on exactly what had changed. I picked up my phone and sent Maria a message. Before she even replied, dinner was ready. I sat across from Adam. Neither of us brought up the messages. There was a quiet, unspoken truce between us. Just as the atmosphere settled, my phone buzzed. I thought it was Maria, so I sheepishly declined the call. Adam glanced at the screen, then looked away with a forced smile. I knew that expression all too well. He wore the same look last night, when he cried again and again. It's fine, he said softly. You can answer. I'll go wash the dishes. Desperate to prove I had nothing to hide, I pushed the phone toward him without thinking. I was just chatting with Maria. Really? His eyes flicked across the empty screen. At that exact moment, a new text arrived. Ding. A receipt from the bar lit up the display, thanking me for my generous support of 3 male models and welcoming me back anytime. As I watched Adam's eyes darken slowly, one single thought crashed through my mind, it's over. I'm so screwed. Adam didn't speak to me for 2 days. The toothbrush and towel were still in their usual spot. The fridge still held warm, lovingly prepared meals. But he came home later and later, often not until after midnight, quietly eating the leftovers I didn't finish. I vented to Maria, but she just shrugged, unimpressed. What did you expect? He was like that 3 years ago too. You broke up with him out of the blue and then pulled the exact same tactics to chase after Thomas. Who wouldn't be heartbroken? Oh, and that safety charm. Didn't you give one to Adam too? Look at him now, does he still wear it? When I first met Adam, I'd heard he'd lost a friend in a tragic accident. The grief had hit him hard, so I climbed a mountain to a temple to get him a talisman for peace and safety. That was also the day he agreed to be with me. If I'd really given the same charm to Thomas, that would be unforgivable. I slammed my fork on the table and yelled toward the ceiling, "System, start talking. What the hell happened these past 3 years?" Even if I'd been completing some mission, this didn't feel like something I could have done. Maybe the wine splash the other day had scared it, because its voice was barely audible now. Well, I might have modified your subconscious, just a bit. So that you'd see Thomas as Adam and start pursuing him. Not my fault. You were only focused on Adam. The strategy progress was 0 for the first 6 months. No wonder. No wonder I'd been blind to Adam. No wonder I poured all my devotion into chasing Thomas. Turns out, the car accident knocked me back onto the right track, by pure accident. I flipped off the air, grabbed my keys, and stormed toward the school. On the way, I sent Adam several messages. He didn't reply to any of them. I was heading straight for his office, until I spotted him seated in the front row of the auditorium. The lecture had just ended. Adam sat with his head bowed, sliding a notebook with the school's golden emblem into his briefcase. I approached quietly. The navy blue scarf tied to his bag fluttered slightly. It made him look inexplicably like someone's husband. He looked up at me, his Adam's apple bobbing involuntarily. I leaned closer and whispered gently, "Let's eat out tonight, our old barbecue place." His lips parted slightly. My heart fluttered with hope. And then, right on cue, a familiar voice rang out behind me. I turned. Thomas was dressed like he was walking a runway, red-soled leather shoes gleaming, shaking hands with the dean. "Since I happen to be free today, how about we grab dinner together? Professor Adam, care to join? Nancy, come along." Somehow, I ended up roped into the dinner. Aside from us, Thomas had also invited one of his friends. "This is my buddy John." He was nearby, so I called him. "You don't mind, President Jones?" President Jones, an older gentleman with refined manners, smiled politely. "The more the merrier. Say, do you and Nancy know each other?" The question shifted the whole table's mood. Adam tensed and clenched his briefcase, then quickly excused himself and left. John smirked, resting his chin on his hand and smoothing things over. "Who doesn't know Nancy? President Jones, any food allergies? If not, I'll order freely." President Jones, clearly a tactful man, laughed and steered the conversation elsewhere. Only Thomas blinked slowly, lost in thought. The entire meal was awkward as hell. Even with my head lowered, I could feel Thomas's eyes on me, bold, almost invasive. I felt too uncomfortable to sit still. I knocked on the table twice and stood up to leave. Thomas lit a cigarette and only showed up at the end of the hallway a few minutes later. "What exactly do you want?" I asked. He exhaled slowly. "Unblock me. Give me your number again." The system squealed in my ear. 78. 78. "You're killing it, master." I narrowed my eyes and sneered. "Why should I? Weren't you the one who said I was like a clingy dog? We're done. Isn't that what you wanted? Then stop staring at me." I turned to leave, but Thomas grabbed my wrist and pressed my hand against his chest. "You think you can just call it quits like that, Nancy? Are you playing me?" I glanced down at his wrist, and saw it. The safety charm. My heart skipped a beat. No wonder Adam had been so distant at dinner. I snatched the charm off his wrist. "If you don't like it, why wear it? It's an eyesore." "What, you gonna cry about it? Too bad. I was just toying with you," I snapped. Then I turned and slapped him, hard. "John cleaned up after your messes more times than I can count. You kept me close because you liked being doted on. And now you want to act like the victim? If you can't let go of Tara, then go live happily ever after with her. Got that?" Thomas's face jerked sideways from the force of my slap. He wiped the sting with his cigarette hand and looked at me lazily. "That one wasn't as satisfying as the last. Try again." I froze. Even the system didn't know what to make of it, but it was losing its mind with excitement. 90. 90. Oh my God, I'm finally getting somewhere. I licked my lips and turned, only to see Adam in the distance, staring at me. President Jones had already left. In the half-open room behind me, only John remained, giving me a clueless smile. I quickly looked away and chased after Adam. "No, didn't you see me slap him?" Adam's long legs carried him away in wide strides. The scarf on his bag fluttered again, revealing a flash of deep red. "I saw," he said flatly. "I also saw him trying to lick your hand." "So what? How is that my fault?" The down arrow lit up. The elevator arrived in front of us. Adam stepped in. Bright lights streamed through the transparent walls of the lift, casting a clean glow on him. "So," he said quietly, "why did you reward him?" I stood frozen for a second, trying to process the question. But by the time I came back to my senses, Adam was already gone. I went downstairs and caught a cab straight to Maria's. These past few days, Thomas had been switching phone numbers non-stop to text me. The system kept updating the strategy progress, and now it was up to 99%. Adam, on the other hand, hadn't sent a single message. I lay at the edge of Maria's bed, gently playing with her little corgi's ears. Maria was preparing to open a new bar, so she often came home late at night. While removing her makeup, she asked me, "You two made up, right? Then why haven't you gone home?" "I don't know," I mumbled. He didn't talk to me for 2 days after that male model thing. Then he caught me with Thomas and stormed off again. I'm not going back just to get ignored. Even as I said it, I couldn't shake the image of Adam's eyes, hurt and hollow, right before the elevator doors closed. A wave of unexplainable bitterness and guilt washed over me. Maria chuckled and scooped the corgi into her arms. I adopted this little guy. He'd been abandoned once before. When he first came, he didn't stick to anyone. Took a while for him to warm up. But one time, I left town and had to board him at a pet hospital for 5 days. The moment he saw me again, he wagged his tail like crazy and barked non-stop. The vet even joked that he cursed me out the whole time. Said, "Why didn't you come get me? Don't you want me anymore? Why am I always the one left behind? You turned your back again, are you leaving me for good?" I blinked. Was that what Adam had been thinking too? Could someone like him, calm, dependable, also feel that kind of fear? That kind of ache from being left behind? I ended up staying at Maria's for nearly 2 weeks. On the day of the bar's grand opening, I arrived early to help out. At the door stood a pair of porcelain-skinned twins. They looked at each other, then handed me matching roses. Maria adjusted her perfectly curled hair, brushed past the twins, and strode down the center like a queen. "What do you think of my opening gift?" I passed the flowers to her assistant and said, "Honestly? I'm honored." She snorted. "You've changed. You used to lose your mind the second you saw a male model." I gave a half-smile. Maybe I had. Otherwise, the system wouldn't have latched onto me in the first place and dragged me into some absurd dating quest. I was still lost in thought when I looked up, and spotted Thomas sitting in the corner. He was clearly dressed to impress, but the fatigue in his eyes betrayed him completely. Maria was busy entertaining guests. I found a spot to sit and texted Adam. According to President Jones, Adam had been working so hard lately, it was like he'd moved into the university. I planned to finish supporting Maria tonight, then move back home. Thomas glanced my way, then clinked glasses with John like nothing had happened. I had a drink and headed to the restroom, and of all people, ran into Tara reapplying her makeup. She had completely dropped the pitiful act from last time and was now staring at me through the mirror with thinly veiled contempt. "Nancy, you really are a haunting little ghost, aren't you?" Word had it that Tara had dated a few people while abroad, but she had never quite gotten over Thomas. They were childhood friends, came from similar backgrounds, and had more than a few matchmakers rooting for them. Most people thought it was only a matter of time before they got bored with the world and settled down together. And clearly, Tara thought the same. "You're mistaken, Tara," I said coolly. "The one who can't let go is Thomas." She hurled her lipstick at the wall with a bang. "Nancy, if you hadn't chased him like a dog, do you think he'd even glance at you? He's always loved me. He was willing to drop everything and fly across the globe for my birthday. You? You were never anything to him. People are like that. They only remember to tighten the string when the kite starts to fly away. But the thing is, I'm not a kite. And Thomas isn't the one holding the string." Just as she finished, the system's voice screamed in my ear, "Bad news. Bad news. They're fighting." I didn't even spare Tara another glance. I turned and sprinted. The system had been behaving lately, occasionally telling me bits of Thomas's past. He'd been kidnapped as a child, right when his house caught fire. No one noticed he was missing until he came back, bruised and battered, and locked himself in a room for 3 days straight. That's when he started learning how to fight. Even without bodyguards, he could hold his own in a street brawl. The fact that Adam managed to punch him that one time must have been pure luck. There's no way he could take Thomas in a fair fight. But as I turned the corner, what I saw left me stunned. Adam had Thomas pinned against a wall, fists flying. The pounding music from 100 meters away was swallowed by the blackness of the night. "Adam, stop. That's enough." He was wearing a long black trench coat, the hem fluttering with every motion. His briefcase lay open on the ground. Underneath his scarf, I caught a glimpse of red. The safety charm. I froze. I thought he'd thrown that away. Thomas, half hidden in the shadows, slumped against the wall. His hand was still injured, and now his face was bruised and swollen. He looked downright pitiful. "Call a friend," I said, keeping my voice even. "Have them take you to a hospital." Adam had bruises too, but he didn't even look at me. He picked up his bag and turned to leave. Instinctively, I took a step to follow him, but Thomas called out behind me. "You're leaving again? He's the one who hit me. Didn't you see that? Ever since your accident, you've only shown me your back. Every time we meet, you either block me or tell me to get lost. Nancy, just be honest. You never loved me, did you?" For someone as proud as Thomas, seeing him sitting slumped on the ground, eyes red with frustration. Even John probably had never seen this side of him. I crouched and took a bandage out of my bag. "Do you want the truth? Or a lie?" He wiped the blood from his mouth and turned his head stubbornly. "I'm done asking. Can't we just go back to how things were? I can pretend not to know about you and Adam." I cut him off. "But I can't. I've already owed him 3 years. But what does that have to do with me?" I stood, looking down at him. "Really? I was sent to strategically pursue you. You mean to tell me you didn't know that?" Not only Thomas, but even the system went silent. "Master, you." I did some digging at Maria's. What the so-called strategy system really is an upgraded version of the wish system. A small number of lucky individuals are granted the opportunity to be someone's target. And you, Thomas, are one of them. At first, I hadn't believed it. But when the system accurately reported both their real-time locations, it confirmed what I had suspected all along. Why had I spent the past 3 years obsessing over Thomas like someone possessed? Why was the system constantly trying to make me remember every little moment I'd once loved him? Because the system's owner was never me. "You like me, don't you, Thomas?" His figure trembled in the shadows. He looked up at me, eyes tinged red. "You like me, so you made a deal with the system. You made it so I'd throw myself into pursuing you, with everything I had. You wanted someone who would never leave. A lover who would always be within reach. That's why you never let the mission end. Am I right?" That also explained why the so-called punishment of failure had been so strange. Thomas staggered to his feet and licked his dry lips. "Nancy, let me explain." I stepped back. His hand fell through the air, catching nothing. There's nothing left to say. His and the system's reaction had said it all. My suspicion was right. "Thomas, love is a two-way street. No one can keep pushing forward if they're pushed away over and over again. Healing your childhood trauma is your journey, it's not mine to complete." I turned and walked away without looking back. If I had to spend the rest of my life haunted by the system's voice, so be it. I'd just call it an auditory hallucination. I walked fast and firm. Just as I stepped out of the alley, a familiar mechanical voice echoed behind me, reverberating in the narrow space. "Congratulations, host. Strategy completed. Until the next journey, farewell." I resisted the urge to turn around. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw Adam leaning against the wall. He had a jacket slung casually over one shoulder, an unlit cigarette hanging from his lips. Adam had been avoiding me for over half a month. I'd tricked him into thinking I was drunk, hoping he might come pick me up, just a gamble. I didn't expect him to actually come. And I certainly didn't expect him to get into a fight with Thomas. A little awkwardly, I rubbed the tip of my nose and followed behind him. The passing car lights outlined the dark streaks on his shirt, tracing the curve of his shoulders, his back. I didn't know how much he had overheard. I didn't even know what he had come for. Lost in thought, I didn't notice when Adam suddenly stopped. I bumped right into his chest. He looked down at me and asked, "Why are you crying? You weren't the one who got dumped." I touched the corner of my damp eyes and looked at him in confusion. According to President Jones, for the past 3 years, Adam had focused solely on work. Despite his young age, he'd already racked up nearly every honor in the department. What had he been thinking when he got that call about my car crash? Adam glanced at me, then suddenly pulled me into a tight embrace. "This time, you're really staying, right?" I gave his waist a little pat, and the moment I did, all my pent-up emotions surged. "This time, you were the one who left first. You wouldn't listen. You just walked away." He rubbed his chin lightly against the side of my neck, his voice laced with a barely detectable tremble. "Nancy." I was scared. "You've always been so carefree. One day, your eyes are on Thomas. The next, you're watching some male model. I didn't know what to do if you left again, if you walked away without a word like you did 3 years ago. What was I supposed to do?" Those 3 missing years may have been a blurry dream for me, but for Adam, they were a very real pain. I had abandoned him, forgotten him, and turned him into a lonely dog, constantly uncertain, always afraid. In the distance, fireworks lit up the sky above the bar. I cupped his face gently and kissed him on the tip of the nose. I will remember you again and again. Extras, Thomas's perspective. The first time I met Nancy was at a university lecture. It was the kind of boring event that made you want to sleep. During the break, I stood in the hallway, staring blankly at the snowy scene outside the window. That's when a flash of red caught my eye. They said her name was Nancy, and she'd been visiting Professor Adam often lately. She held a bouquet of roses dusted with snow and pounced into Adam's arms like a little rabbit. I scrolled through my phone, staring at our chat thread, the one where I had been repeatedly blocked. Tara always asked me what I wanted. I never knew how to answer. People thought I had everything, young, successful, admired. But only I knew the truth. I often felt like I had nothing at all. The moment I came home after being kidnapped as a child, I felt an emptiness that has never truly gone away. It clung to me like damp fog. I needed someone who would never leave. Someone who would always be there when I turned around. So I gave in to selfishness. I opened the invitation from the wish system and quietly typed in my desire. What I didn't expect was that the person assigned to pursue me would be Nancy. For a day, I felt guilty. Then I started feeling lucky. Lucky that it was her. Extras, Adam's perspective. I can't remember when Nancy started pulling away. She stopped coming home. Stopped answering my calls. I called her best friend, but she only stammered through vague excuses. If she's really tired of me, could she at least say it to my face? I wasn't as young or bold as those male models she hung around with. Sweet words didn't come easily to me. But Nancy never called. Then one night, I was out entertaining clients at a bar, and I saw her. She hurried out of a car, holding a thermos of freshly made chicken soup. Nancy was a great cook. She could make all sorts of fancy dishes. She used to say I was the one who took good care of her. But in truth, she was far more thoughtful than I ever was. She'd stay by my side when I was sick. When I was devastated by the death of my childhood friend, she climbed temple steps one by one to pray for me, returning with a red safety charm to ease my pain. I clenched my jaw and stepped into her path. Can we talk? Even if she didn't love me anymore, I just wanted to hear her voice again. Our home was full of traces of her. In the half-month she'd been gone, I had nearly gone mad. But she only spared me a cold glance, then ran into another man's arms. That eager, gentle look in her eyes used to be mine. I stood in the rain for a long time that night, chain-smoking until the ground was littered with cigarette butts. In the end, I watched them leave together, hand in hand, as if I didn't exist. And in that moment, it felt like something inside me simply ceased to exist. I packed up every last thing that belonged to Nancy, then quietly put them all back in their original places. Because I realized, even if I erased every trace of her, I still couldn't sleep at night. So I poured everything into my work. President Jones joked that I must be saving up to get married. I smiled and said nothing. I had been planning to propose to her on my birthday. But by then, there was no space left for me in her eyes. I don't know how long those days dragged on. Long enough that when I finally received her call, it felt like a dream from another life. The moment I heard her voice, sweet, playful, calling me baby like nothing had ever changed, I started shaking. And as I ran to her, heart pounding, I thought, even if it's a trap, I'll still fall. Just let me see her again.